Now, when you think of an Olympian, what comes to mind? Dedication, hard work, discipline, training day in and day out for their country. But let's be honest, this image has been tarnished recently by a few of these guys. Now, they are mostly known for crazy antics, God-level talent, and yes, maybe some OnlyFans content. And that isn't meant to disrespect the athletes, but it seems like they're retaking extreme measures just to get a few extra bucks in their pockets. But it turns out there's a reason behind all of this, and it goes way deeper than meets the eye. Now, in today's video, we will discuss why Olympians have resorted to creating adult content so they can make money. But before we do that, give this video a thumbs up, and let's dive right in. When you think about the top paid athletes in the world, Olympians may not be the first thing that pops into your head. Footballers, basketball players, even golfers seem to make more millions than these dedicated athletes who put their bodies on the line every year at the Olympics. And don't get us wrong, we love all these sports. It's just mind-boggling how these athletes can be considered the best in the world at what they do, yet still struggle to pay their bills. And the worst part is that it doesn't seem to matter how many medals you have. If you're not in one of the more popular sports like gymnastics or swimming, no one really cares about you. Now, for example, Simone Biles has more than 7 million Instagram followers. That's because she's done more than most to grow her brand. And thanks to that, she gets a lot of paid sponsorships. We'd say that she's one of the biggest faces of the Olympics. And that is also why she was the highest paid female Olympian in 2021, with a whopping $7 million. On the other hand, we have snowboarder Lindsey Vonn, who only has around 2 million followers. Even though she's won for Olympic medals, she's also won for overall World Cup championships. But because she's not as marketable as Bile, she makes just a fraction of what she does. This is the sad reality of being an Olympian. You must be in the public eye and market yourself correctly if you want to make any kind of decent money. Otherwise, you're just another athlete who competes every year at the Olympics. And unfortunately, the issue doesn't stop there. While athletes are trying their best to build a brand outside of the Olympics, the International Olympic Committee is busy limiting their ability to earn money from sponsorships. And that's where IOC Rule 40 comes into play. Now, this rule prevents athletes from promoting anything that isn't an official sponsor of the Olympics. For example, if Adidas was a sponsor of the Olympics, then athletes would not be allowed to promote Nike products. This rule was put in place so that sponsors don't lose interest in sponsoring the Olympics. It's basically so that the people promoting certain products do untake away from the products that they repaying big bucks to advertise. So when you see an Olympian post a picture of them wearing a certain brand during the Olympics, you can bet that that brand is a sponsor. Now we know what you're thinking. Well, there are thousands of brands out there. Surely these athletes can find one that's not sponsoring the Olympics and promote that, right? Well, you're right. But the problem is that these companies aren't exactly lining up to give these athletes millions of dollars to promote their product. And the ones that do give them money tend to be smaller companies that just couldn't afford to pay top dollar. So most Olympians just don't promote any brands, especially during the Olympics. And when you're at the elite level of your sport, this can seriously hurt your bank balance. In the end, it just adds to the already broken financial model for Olympic athletes. They train their whole lives to compete at the Olympics and represent their country. Yet when they're done competing, they're left with very little pay raises that don't even keep up with inflation. Take the U.S. Olympic Committee, for example. Back in 2016, they increased athlete stipends to $1,800 per month. Then in 2021, they increased it again to $2,100. That doesn't seem like a lot, especially considering that these guys are risking their lives every time they compete. And even though Olympians are making more money than ever, it's still not enough. Between 2013 and 2019, the average annual income for an Olympian was $46,000. Now that may sound like a decent amount, but remember that these guys are sacrificing so much. And if you look closer, you'll find that 64% of Winter Olympic athletes and 68% of Summer Olympic athletes were employed in full-time or part-time jobs. So while they're training and competing, these guys are working regular jobs just to make ends meet. And that's just sad. And it gets worse when you consider the fact that they could be training for the Olympics full-time instead of working. But without that steady income, they have no choice. Now, even though the pay hasn't kept up with inflation, the Olympics have actually grown in popularity over the last decade. In fact, The viewership numbers from 2016's Rio Olympics are insane. More than 3.1 billion people tuned in to watch the games across 209 countries. And that's a 20% increase from the previous games in 2012. So clearly there is money to be made here. But unfortunately, these athletes aren't getting their fair share. Sure, there are a few lucky athletes out there who strike gold both at the Olympics and financially, but most of them aren't so fortunate. And that's the reason why Olympians have resorted to doing things like OnlyFans. Yes, it's a bit extreme, but at the end of the day, they're just trying to make money. When you look at it from the outside, it seems like the Olympics is this huge event that brings in billions of dollars every year. In fact, the worldwide Olympic market is valued at more than $100 billion. And this is what makes the situation so sad. There is more than enough money to go around. But unfortunately, the system is rigged against these athletes. The ones at the top get ridiculously rich, the ones in the middle get by, and the ones at the bottom struggle just to pay their bills. And what makes it worse is that they dedicate their entire lives to the Olympics, and they do and know how to do anything else. Imagine investing 10 years of your life into a sport and then having nothing to show for it. Well, that's what happens to most Olympic athletes. And that's why it's so important for them to start thinking outside of the box. Yes, they've dedicated their lives to the Olympics, but now it's time to focus on the future. And that means investing in new skills that can help them make money outside of the Olympics. After all, the Olympics only come around every 4 years. So it's important to invest in themselves and start businesses that can help them become financially free. And that's something that some Olympians have already started to do. Take beach volleyball player April Ross, for example. She's won several medals at the Olympics, but she's also started several successful businesses. Now she has a clothing line, a jewelry line, and she even owns a home with her husband. And it's this type of thinking that can help these athletes become financially free. Sure, they may not become millionaires, but they can definitely start making more money and not worry about paying their bills. Now, it's tough to say whether or not the younger athletes are willing to do this. Some of them have probably spent their entire lives focused on the Olympics, so it's hard for them to imagine doing anything else. But if they want to make sure that they're not stuck in a never-ending cycle of poverty, then they need to start thinking outside of the box. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for more amazing business and finance content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.